Right. Wait. Half a day. All right. Nangadzabetekesti. Let's see if the live stream is up and running. Hungan. Humatotso esti. Oh, Hungan huhungo kibosu. Hulii ilitratuhu. Hungan. The live stream is up. Okay. All right. Enigisi Megetu. Enigisi Alfred. Lotaiguisi Sett. Taiguisi Sett. Hopefully, Sett will be joining shortly. Hungan. All right. Well, let me get this episode started. Half a day. Inano si Michael Luhan Bavakwa. Wawi host Midzu para este na especial na episode Fanatsu. This is a very special episode of Fanachu. It's special for a few different reasons. This is special because this is actually the 300th episode of Fanachu. Oh my goodness, there have been 300 episodes of Fanachu. Good Lord. Ay Zeus. Ay Fauna. Koenhengesti, can you believe this? You know, Fanachu started off as a podcast in which a former student of mine, Manny Cruz, who's now Professor Manny Cruz at the University of Guam, he was a volunteer for the group Independent Guahan, which had just started, and Manny Cruz said, "You know what's interesting and new nowadays? A podcast." And I was like, "Podcast? I'm not quite sure what that is, but why don't we try it out?" And he was like, "Okay, let's do it. All you got to do is get a microphone and like talk real close into the microphone and like talk about things." And I was like, "Oh man, I got a PhD. I got a shitload of student loan debt. I can talk about things. Let's do this." And after it, 300 episodes later, Fanachu has had a lot of producers. We've had a lot of hosts. We've had a lot of wonderful guests. But for me, this is very special because we get to go back 18 years today. We get to go back 18 years to something which is actually very special to me. Something very special in my story about how I got into all of these issues, but something which is also just important in the story of the Chamorro people and how and where we are at today, where we are at as a people spread across the Pacific, spread across the United States. You know, the word diaspora is something that people use more and more nowadays. The diaspora. There's more Chamorros now living outside of the Marianas than in the Marianas. The diaspora is bigger than ever. And so we need to be talking more about what it means to be a people spread across and around the Pacific. And so 18 years ago, a group of Chamorros who were in the United States held a conference called the Famoksaiyan Conference. And so some of those who helped organize this conference, we have gathered today for this special Fanachu episode to reflect on that conference. And so we've got here with us, Sett Quinata is coming back. She was connected and now she disconnected, but we've got Miguetu Tuncap. I'm glad that he's here. We've got Alfred Flores, Biba. And so what's it called? Let's while we're uh while we're waiting for Sett to come back though, let's do some introductions real fast. And so do some introductions where we are now in our lives here in 2024. And so Alfred, why don't you go first? Because Miguetu, it looks like you're driving. Are you driving in Gaza right now? Hungan Mungyao. Oh my goodness, it's like you're driving in. Are you? Oh my goodness, Hungan. I saw this episode in The Last
Free
of Us.
Palestine! Hungen, free Palestine! Balagu Momu, Israel! Hey,
Woo!
Sinjas Masi, go ahead. You go first. You go
Hungan,
first, Samuel.
because
It's good to see you guys. Go ahead first.
okay,
Dr. Flores, you go first.
Hungan, to give Miguetu more time to get where he's going, Hungan. And so Alfred, put for boat, just introduce yourself where you're at now, because then what I want us to do is talk about where we were at in 2006 when the Famoksaiyan conference happened.
All right, sounds good. So half a day, everyone. Prim, Maget, thanks again for bringing us all together. Thanks for having me back on the show again. And so it's a pleasure to be in space with all of you. Just as customary as we like to do, right? Familian Kulu from the village of Dotnya, Familian Cabeza from the village of Totu, and then on my mother's side, my family name is Kim, and I was born actually in Seoul, South Korea. So I'm Korean on my mother's side, and then Chamorro from my father's side. And so right now, I actually live in California, where in Southern California, where I live with my wife, my partner, and our two kids. So she and I have two children. One's name's Matua, which is actually one of Magetu's son's name as well. And then my daughter's name's Pasi. And so those are two kids. And then my wife's, my partner name, her name is Milan. And I'm currently a professor at Harvey Mudd College, where I teach Pacific Islander Studies courses. And I'm a professor there. So, yeah.
Hey, Sidzus Mase, Sidzus Mase. All right. And now we go to Magetu. Oh, and Nagisi set. All right, Biba, Biba. And now we go to Magetu, Hungan, Magetu. And so put favor, it is so good to see you. I'm so glad that Alfred reached out to you and welcomed you to join. And so Magetu, Mangihao. Where are you at? Introduce yourself. Where are you at in life today?
Half a day, Manelu, Guahu, Miguel, I'm reporting live from Gaza, and I'd like to say that don't believe the news, okay? Free the Palestinian people, and our freedom is aligned with the Chamorros. It's good to see my Famoksaiyan people. I'm coming to you actually, trying to see how I can take the filter off. Oh, I'm coming to you from Tacoma, Washington. Yep, I'm lahin si David Gumatata Tungkap, inin familiang Tobik, Tata Nigwa, lahin si Violeta Therese sa Nicholas, ginin familiang Jojo, dan familiang Tongku, Tata Inalahan. And my boys, I have two sons. Elijah is 18. He's a first year at UW. He was actually a baby when we originally had Famoksaiyan. He was actually a little baby, and he was in the stroller at the conference. His mama Carmen was pushing him around the stroller, and our younger son is Matua. He's a freshman in high school. And I've spent most of my career working in education in a number of different colleges, universities, and leading something in Washington called the Pacific Islander Network, which has helped start college organizations and conferences. And I help to lead like the Pacific Islander faculty, staff of color, our affinity groups. And most recently, I'm teaching at Olympic College, the first Asian American Studies class. And next year in the fall, I'll teach the first Oceania class. So yeah, it's good to see everybody. And it's my birthday today, fan dog. Yeah, I know. I'm so beautiful.
Hey,
Hey, hey, go ahead and
Viva
almond me Hey,
cumpleaños!
go ahead and
happy
Happy
almond me.
birthday.
birthday.
Viva
Hey,
Happy
cumpleaños!
birthday.
go ahead and
Wait,
almond me
¿cuántos años out?
everybody when you
¿Cuántos
see me.
años? How old? How old?
45.
Whoa!
I know.
Oh,
Malefizo, I forgot that you're older than me.
Hey, hey, go ahead. You know what? I know. Go
Hunggan,
ahead.
bengingaw. Befangingaw, hunggan.
Bless you. But it's really a blessing. Honestly, I think it's a good sign that, Alfred just asked me yesterday to do this. So I think it's a good sign on my birthday. We have this little reunion, and so it's good to see everybody. Yeah, I love you guys. So I'll let Sett introduce herself because you're the last of the Fantastic Four.
Sidus Masi, Sidus Masi. And Sett, I'm glad that you're back, and Hunggan, and that you've reconnected. And so Sett, put favor, introduce yourself. Where are you at in your life now? Because in a little bit, I'm going to show pictures of us back in 2006.
Well, Huff day, everybody. Man, it's so good to see you guys. So good. Where I'm at now, I'm actually in Guam. I am a social worker. Primarily been working in the healthcare field. And yeah, it's been a phenomenal journey. To see where we were, and then 18 years later, I'm gonna get to his birthday to then reconnect. What a phenomenal just experience. So happy to be here with all of you guys and miss you all. I was telling Alfred and Miguel that we got to meet up like at IHOP or Denny's at some point, like at 2 a.m. in the morning, just to have this reunion. So this is awesome to see you guys.
Not said 2 o'clock in the morning. That's too late. I'll be asleep by 2. Make it like 10. Maybe no. Make it more like 8, and I'll be there.
Biba. All right. Now, so Famoksaiyan was a conference that was born out of, a lot of experiences that, Chamorros for the longest time have felt invisible and marginalized in the United States. That's just that it's an experience that continues up until today. But Chamorros felt it from the beginning of our relationship to the United States, right? But I think that part of this really came out from the experiences that each of us were having in education, whether in our programs that we were in conferences that we were attending, as we were trying to find a place in academia or in basically in civil society out in the United States. And we were being pushed into the Asian American Pacific Islander matrix, or we were being told that there's the Polynesian hegemony over here, or we were told that Chamorros are this, Chamorros are that, or Chamorros don't exist, or that, and that from all of these different sides, there was just so little for Chamorros. It didn't seem like there was much. And so it really seemed that there needed to be a space for Chamorro people to come together. And each of you may have seen, it's been on social media a lot, sort of in the recent days, the Chamorro flash mob in the Walmart down in California. And so just a gathering of Chamorro people, a spontaneous gathering of Chamorro people coming together. And so in some ways, so Famoksaiyan as a space for Chamorro people, young Chamorro people that want to feel connected. And so this was a conference that we discussed, that we planned. And so what's it called? Sett, let's start with you this time around, and then we'll go Sett, Migetu, and then Alfred. So kind of what drew you to Famoksaiyan? What drew you to kind of a space like this? And go ahead and share kind of just what were your experiences like, sort of being Chamorro out in the States. And so Sett, go ahead, put for what.
So my experience with Famoksaiyan, I think actually stemmed just from having questions about being Chamorro. I actually realized I was Chamorro, and I think more so indigenous in college. And I didn't realize that I was writing about, Guam or Chamorro experiences and paralleling them to other cultures and other indigenous communities. And I think I just longed to better understand what that meant. And so in Southern California, I reached out to various different groups, Couture and Chamorro Foundation. I've also reached out to Guam Communications Network and just trying to understand, other Chamorro collectives. But I had an opportunity to actually work at the Department of Interior, Office of Insular Affairs, in 2004, and got a chance to, I think, even further understand the political relationship with Guam and with the U.S. And also had a chance to connect with other community groups out there as well. It was part of the hearing for the war reparations which was a really, really amazing experience, just to be a part of that. And through that, I started to, I think, just ask questions and ask questions out loud. I remember emailing Maget and just other Chamorros, scholars, activists, educators, those even with, in the political realm, and just trying to, again, just asking certain questions as far as, what does it mean to be Chamorro to them? What 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 hopes do they have for the next generation? How do we revitalize our culture, our language, and just different things that I was trying to explore even within my own identity. And so my coming into Famoksaiyan was just wanting to connect in a more deeper level and in a more personal, intimate relationship with what does it mean to be Chamorro. And I think, like you said, Maget Famoksaiyan presented a space with other folks, who kind of also were in that exploration or are in that understanding, and it allowed me to not feel ashamed or not feel intimidated. And I think to actually feel a sense of belonging in that. And so I think just the questioning, who I am and trying to find more of my own identity and root in that sense is what led me to Famoksaiyan.
Sidus Masi Set, Sidus Masi. We get to Hogunai. What led you down sort of this down this path?
Well, it's obvious that I'm one of the chosen ones. You know, you're obviously the fire, and being Miguel, and Sett is obviously the wind. Alfred is the land. So I guess I'll be the water fan because I got all this blue on. In case you cannot tell, I'm very proud to be in Seattle, dog. This is a Seahawks sweater set from Burlington. $15, girl. Don't be mad now. Miguel, this is a $30 Seahawk hat. We would never win any games. But I'm not even mullered. I'm not even mullered about it because I'm so Chamorro. And Miguel, your plan is work, bro. We're taking over the world. Look at us. Hey, I know we're not supposed to tell, but you had a plan. We would take over the earth. I see you're gonna lead our people to the delegation in Hawaii. If only the FBI knew how dangerous you are, man. You're like James Baldwin mixed with Malcolm X, dude. You're so fancy. And we all know Mr. Dr. Flores' book just came out. I'm the tip of the spear. We all know what you mean by that, Chelu. That's why you got 2 kids, bro. Because you got that tip of the spear, Brown. I get it. That's how, hey, Miguel, let's not talk about how many kids you got, brother. Okay? We're all some ancient Chamorros up in here. Okay? I came to this work because of that, man. Because I'm so Anigua. You cannot ever take it out of me. I could be in a pho restaurant in Tacoma, and I still got a bad FICO score set. Because I'm Anigua for life, girl. And I just always grew up feeling like so proud to be Chamorro, And I remember when I when I first was growing up here, Chamorro people in Washington, every Saturday, I'm not exaggerating, they would have a wedding or a baptism or funeral or retirement. So when I moved here from Guam, when I was just a little kid, I was very lucky to always see our people come together. It was so beautiful. My brother and I, though, where we went to school, there was usually not a lot of Chamorros. There might be 10 to 20 Chamorro kids in our elementary or middle school, high school. And whenever we met Chamorro kids, they always became good friends. Some of them, they're those kind of Chamorros that like to start fights, Miguel. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to name them now. John Pangilinan, Bruce Pangilinan, they like to start fights. Yeah, Alfred, can you imagine these 2 short, round Chamorros, but they're very tough? And they're like, Miguel too. Who's the toughest dude in here? And they made me point to the kid. Then they went and started a fight with him like we're in Georgia, said. Yeah, like we're in Georgia after a baseball game.
No, Hungan, I hate to say it, but there is a Pangolinan family that has that in them, there, especially it,
Hey, they're
that's why
Obo.
tomorrow's come up with clan names, nice, so
Yeah.
you know the family ahead of time. Oh,
And can I
Taiguanao.
just say,
Taiguanao.
as a people, one of our biggest social problems, we don't lose well. You know, if we lose in a sporting event, we take it too serious, everybody. I'm sure some of you got grown Chamorro cousins playing in adult sports leagues. Please tell them they are not in the NBA, Alfred. Okay, somebody tell their grown cousin you are a grown woman playing tackle football. Okay, but I think it's again, Chamorros love to rep the island. They love to compete together, and that whole spirit, I think, is part of what drew me to be part of the student organizations in college. And at UW, we got to, put on our fiesta. That really drew me to Pacific Island studies and ethnic studies. And then Miguel almost went to Berkeley, but he thought if we went to Berkeley, we would definitely both be deported. So he chose not to go because he
We would
was
have
worried about,
started too much shit. We would have
yeah.
started, they would have caught on to us, and we definitely would have been caught too early.
But you know what it would have been like? They almost put Chris Paul on Kobe Bryant's Lakers. That's what we would have been. We would have won another championship. You know what I mean? So, but it's okay. You were definitely meant to go to San Diego because that's how this whole beautiful Famoksaiyan energy. I think being in Sons and Daughters, that whole spirit, being by Sett back then, and the people that were down in Southern California. I just remember you reaching out, and then I invited my cousin who was at Seattle U, Chaz Pangolinan, who I'm happy to say graduated and has a family and really successful doing this thing. So I felt like Famoksaiyan was one of the most impactful experiences that I had in my life, really. If in the year after, we did the follow up at Berkeley. That was beautiful to bring people to the Bay.
Oh yeah,
And
and
to, yeah. So
actually, this is the
go ahead.
Bay Area. This is part of the Bay Area crew behind me.
Oh, that's a great picture.
Yeah,
Yep, I can see. Let me see. Wait, wait, wait. So I can see Rima, Tiffany. I can see Lola, John. I can see Justina. I can see Vika. Yeah.
yeah,
Miguel, is
guy,
that you with the beard? Is that you with the beard?
that is me. I'm between Vika and Rima and Jamela.
Now listen, some people think that it's because you have a PhD, but you know why you're so malati and have that Aniti spirit? It's your beard, dude. You're like Franz Fanon with your beard. If you shave your beard, you'll look like Alfred and you won't be as deep. Don't shave it.
No,
You need
I
your beard.
agree
It's
with
your
you.
secret power, dude.
I agree with you. I think Native Americans and Samson have it right.
Hey, you know what? Whenever I tell my white colleagues about you, I tell them, Dr. Bivakwa, you're not allowed to speak to him. He has an assistant that you have to go through, and you can only talk to them in Chamorro because he's very political. If you speak to him in English, he's considered racist. So
Oh, I
don't
won't.
contact.
I,
Yeah, I
I
always
will.
like to lie, and because they think you're so, you're
No.
so famous, and I tell them you're like Malcolm X. I'm like, he has bodyguards and everything, girl. Hey, Mueller, they believe it. Hey,
Oh,
Sett, I can be in front of 1,000 white people and I'll be like, everybody, repeat after me. And they all do it, Sett. All of them. It's awesome. Alfred, I'm gonna have them reading your book very shortly, buddy. So yeah, that's what brought me to the work. And I like to enjoy my work, obviously, as you can see, because I feel like at the end of the day, what they can't take from us is our joy, you know. And I always find Chamorros, we find the humor in really difficult things, And I feel like we deal with colonization by trying to find laughter and just remind each other to just be humble and just to be thankful, that we're all still here, able to live our lives.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I appreciate being here. I'm going to pass the baton to my brother over here. Hey, the only person more Batsagu than me is this brother. Okay? Sett, look at my eyes, girl. Look, I'm going to open them as wide as I can. Now, ask Alfred to do the same thing. Alfred, do the same thing. Okay? Because I'm telling you, he's the most Batsagu Telu, and that's why he's my hero. Pass it to you. Hey, kamsamnida, sadang heo.
But how am I supposed to how am I supposed to follow that up? Oh man, no,
Alfred,
no,
Hey, wait, can I tell you guys one last funny thing? Okay, one not funny, but just context. So I don't know, I don't think Miguel knows this or Sett, but I was married 15 years to my boy's mom, but we separated when the pandemic happened in 2020, and I'm actually about to be on a date. Okay, and hey, between us four, don't tell anybody. Is this being recorded? Is it being recorded? Okay. Hey,
Again,
hey,
it is.
the other 160,000 Chamorros, don't tell anybody else. Just us 160,004. Hey, I think I might be in love with this girl. Look, got her flowers. Hey, look, Sett, I got her the fancy chocolate. Hey, and you know the irony? Hey, you know how Chamorros be beefing? What's the one ethnic group that Chamorros beef with the most? And then that's what her ethnic group is. Guess what she is? What group?
Is she
what
Chukis or Filipina?
What ethnic group? Yeah, good
Chukis or No, no, Baguette. She's Chukis and Filipina. She's mixed.
Oh.
Hey, Palau. You better stop.
So the only benefit though is Todd's a shame and scandal in the family. You don't have to worry about.
Hey, but she's a good girl. Hey, you know what I did last Sunday? I went to mass so I could pretend like I go every Sunday. And then her mom and her saw me at mass, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm here all the time." Muller said, "I haven't been since Christmas, but I really like her." I didn't even go on Easter. I'm going to hell, but hopefully, if I settle down with a good woman like her, then I can get my life back together. You know what I'm saying? So,
Enegi, that's it. It's the journey. Hungan, Enegi, it's the journey. Primo.
Okay, man, where to start? Okay, I would say for me, the journey is like, a lot of my, memories and everything, growing up, or not growing up, but spending a lot of time with my parents and my grandparents' Lansu in the city of Paris, which is in the Inland Empire. So, if there's any IE folks, you all know where Paris is. Very rural parts of Paris, and so my grandparents, when they, moved from Guam after 1962. They lived in Long Beach for a little bit, and then they ended up settling for most of their time in Paris. And so what they did was they built a Lansu there. And at the Lansu, they had pigs and goats and chickens and pigeons and all those things that you find, in a lot of Lansus today, right? And throughout the Mariana Islands. And so, I always had an opportunity to see, kind of an Alpha Malik being played out in that kind of a space, right? And then, we'd always have like relatives that would be coming in and people who weren't even relatives coming into the Lansu, and then my grandmother and my grandfather would be like, "Hey, that's your uncle or that's your auntie," and I'm like, "I don't even know who these people are. I never met them or seen them before." But that was the kind of hosting, and that's the kind of reciprocity and those things of care that we do for each other. So those are the kinds of formidable experiences I always had as a young person. I couldn't translate it into like an academic or scholarly way, right, of understanding of how those things work, but I always knew it, right? Like I always experienced it and seen it embodied, right, by my grandparents. And so, when I went to college, I went to community college, and after community college, I transferred to UC Riverside. And at UC Riverside, I was a history major. I wanted to be, I figured out at some point that I wanted to be a history professor, because I wanted to teach college students. Because I volunteered at my high school, and I learned very quickly that high school is not for me. So I really have a lot of props for the folks who are K through 12 teachers, because they do something that I could never do. And so, I knew that college was for me. But then, I got exposed to ethnic studies. And I really think that was one of the turning points that I had, was that, I got exposed to ethnic studies, and I got to learn about how these histories that center the experiences of, African American, of Native American, American Indian, of Asian Americans, of, Chicano, Chicana, Chicanx, right? Like these were the things I was learning, that, these are ways that these histories and experiences can be centered, and that they could be, we can learn from them, right? And that they were transformative. And so it was in those moments where I was like, well, fuck, we don't have anything for, Chamorros and Pacific Islanders. Like, why not, And, at that time, obviously there were burgeoning pockets of that happening already in certain parts. But, for me, as like a new undergrad, my only experience and understanding of ethnic studies in terms of a Pacific Islander context was only at UC Riverside, and there was none there. And so, my aunt, Tilu Flores Kitugwa, who worked at Guam Communications Network for a very long time as a, public health educator, she said, hey, you should meet this guy. There's this guy that also does like, Chamorro studies, and, is a grad student. And she was like, yeah, you should meet him. And I was like, his name's Michael Lujan Bavakwa. And I was like, okay, well, let me, I would love to meet him. And so, it was like, that was like one of the first meetings, that I don't even remember the first time we met Leggett, but I remember we found a way to meet up, and, and I think, we spent a lot of time right together those first couple of years of us being at grad school, you at UC San Diego, me at UCR. And, I remember, you coming out to UCR a couple of times, me and us hanging out, and then just talking about Chamorro stuff, talking about, all kinds of things. And then the big thing was that we went to conferences together. And I think that was like one of the sparking moments for Famoksaiyan, at least from my memory, right? We went to AAAS, which is the Association for Asian American Studies.
And Enpine was one of the first ones, actually.
Shout out to Dr. Victor Thompson.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, Enpine is where we met.
The man with the ukulele. Yeah. And so
actually, I think Enpine is where we met.
First ones. Yes, that's where we first met. Because
you and Mike Perez.
Yes. And then who was else there? Soledad Tenorio was there. I think that's her name, Soledad Tenorio. And that was kind of, it showed that Enpine was a good example of how like there was quite a few Chamorros out there, but academically, like Chamorros had never really connected in the diaspora. Like, and Enpine was more community based. So it was an example of how like certain islanders such as Dr. Victor Thompson and others who and islanders who worked in areas like Long Beach, where there was a lot of Pacific Islanders, knew that there needed to be support to get islanders into higher ed. So they were creating an infrastructure to support that. But that for a lot of Chamorros, like they were just kind of moving around, and they didn't like that. Chamorros weren't connecting to each other in scholarly ways in the diaspora. So that they were just kind of either, like you, they were just kind of going into grad school and then wondering, is anyone else out here? Is anyone kind of doing this work? Or they were coming from the islands and then they were looking around and saying, is anyone else from the islands out here? And then there wasn't much. And if you unless you were at UH Manoa, if you were basically in Hawaii, then you were in the center, you were kind of in a hub. But if you weren't there, then, you were, who knew, like you might as well be in Wyoming or something like that. And
so I think for me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, so I think for me, right, like being at UC Riverside and having a professor there who was like my mentor, he really like encouraged me and embraced me to like pursue, studying, Chamorro studies, doing research on it in his Native American studies classes. So that was like, at my time there, Robert Perez, right? He was, he still is there. He would like, he'd say, well, Chamorro people are Native people to me. He's like, so for all your papers in this class, you could write about Chamorro, you could write about Chamorro research papers, that's what you could write on. He let me do those things in his classes. And so I think that coupled with like, our opportunities to engage each other, and hang out and just like, talk story and get to learn about together, right? About kind of all these issues really helped. And us then that I think, pivoted us to like conferencing together. So remember we did AAAS. We went to AAAS together, and I think the thing that really stood out to me was like, and I asked you about this, and I think you were, you had already been to a couple conferences before, but I was just floored by just how expensive it was to go to a conference. I remember just being like, wow, they're charging like $60 to go, and then you got to charge, and then they're charging you to present too on top of that. Like I just remember I would be so floored by it, and I think not saying that you didn't already have conversations with other people, but I remember having conversations with you about like saying, well, why don't we just throw our own conference that's like tomorrow centered, and we're not going to charge anybody anything. Like we're going to just do it freaking grassroots style, like chip in our money and like get people to donate. So I don't know if that's what you're part of the things that you remember, but I remember having that conversation with you, and so yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I remember us having a man. No, this takes me back, and I wanted to share this because this was 18 years ago for those of you who are tuning in. So remember that the world was both different and similar 18 years ago. So this is this was the call for presentations that we put out for the conference. Famoksaiyan decolonizing Chamorro histories, identities and futures, April 14 to 15, 2006. And then sort of wrote up basically a rationale for this. And then sort of now people had lots of questions about the name Famoksaiyan, and that the root word for it was poksai. Poksai meaning to paddle, or poksai meaning to nurture. You can use poksai like if you're raising a child or if you're nurturing an animal, raising animals. So it means to like paddle ahead, to nurture, to grow, the time for that to take place. And so, yeah, this was so it's interesting because what I remember is like emailing this to people. I remember sharing this on like MySpace with people and even on the website like People for Guam, which was still a thing back then, the website People for Guam, Guam's like and so let's before I share some pictures from that though, I wanted to get everyone's feedback though on like so we made a decision to kind of put this out there to put the call out to invite people, and then we don't really know if anyone's coming. We put it out and some people submit that they want, some people do submit that they want to present. So we have like these are different themes that people can present on. And so at first this is really like a conference. We're looking for undergrads and graduate students. People can talk about reparations, decolonization, mental health issues, history, language, militarization. And what made this conference, historic was that these were all things that there had been several decades of conversations and activism in Guam in particular, and to some extent in the Northern Islands about these issues. But in the diaspora, there hadn't really been anything like a conference like this. There hadn't been any sort of because I mean, can you imagine, for example, 18 years ago, the Guam Club having a conference on militarization of land and life and desire, or Chamorros and cross racial coalitions, mental and physical health issues, maybe something that ensuring educational access. And so I wanted to ask sort of what was your feeling in the time leading up? Because we had made this decision, we put it out to our networks, we reached out, we emailed people, we called people, we social media was different back then, but we put it out on social media. Oh man, I even posted this on Friendster. If you remember what Friendster is. If anyone watching, and there are quite a few of you people watching, but I man, there's quite a bunch of people watching, but maybe you don't want to show your age. If you're watching, comment if you are a part of Famoksaiyan. I know there's some people watching who are part of Famoksaiyan. If you were attended any of the conferences, if you are part of it, let us know. If you have a question, let us know. But I do want to ask, sort of, what were you feeling? Were you anxious about it? Were you feeling like maybe no one was going to come? That we were going to waste, that all of it might have been a waste of time, all of the energy that we had put into organizing it? What were your thoughts? And Migetu may have started his date already. We'll check in with him shortly, but Sett, go ahead. Hago Finetna.
I think during that time, I think it was just surreal, I think everything was just moving organically. That I think I was feeling all kinds of different emotions. I was feeling, nervousness, excitement, just making sure that we had everything, like together. I remember, I think, us going to get like photocopies of like the program and the flyers, and just making sure like just the details and logistics were all done. Um, I loved, I think, just getting to know everybody, as much as we were doing the conference. I think it was just like Alfred mentioned, just I think hanging out and just talking story, just really understanding like who we were, and not necessarily like what we were doing. And I think in also like bringing people together, and I think for me the most amazing part of it was, I think, actually seeing everybody all in one space. And realizing people came from, not only out of state, but even like from Guam at that time. And I remember I think just being wowed by that, Um, and we had, different, like I said, just different people from walks of life and, different interests. And I think to be able to come together, um, including also members of the Sons and Daughters of Guam Club, in San Diego. Like I said, I think it was just bringing different generations. So I think it was a lot of different emotions. I think it was profound and, yeah, just I think surreal all at the same time. And but I think just very, very organic and very, I don't know, just there's cultural feeling, but this like, almost like we were immediately family already in that sense. And it was just a really, really amazing space to be in, and just a profound experience in my life.
Oh, Seduce Masi. And Alfred, before we hear from you, though, I just wanted to share some pictures. I'll put some pictures on, Alfred, while you're sharing. And so this is like a group photo. This doesn't include everybody who was there, but over the 2 days, more than 70 people attended. And as you can see, some of the people who attended uh, went on to become scholars for, in the diaspora and in the Marianas. Some two in particular went on to become elected leaders. Sabina Perez, for example, here attended, and she is currently a sitting senator in the legislature here on Guam. James Perez Servino over here, he works for the Human Rights Campaign. He's worked for a national nonprofit which works for LGBTQ plus issues. And so Neil Weir here, he is an attorney who's working for Right to Democracy, which is trying to dismantle the insular cases. Uh, and so, so many. So for the first conference, some people have asked me, they said, wasn't Julian Uggan there? Julian Uggan, the international attorney for human rights of the Chamorro people. Julian Uggan was not there, but Julian Uggan's sister Rhea was there, and Julian Uggan's mother were both there. So it was like a family reunion for Julian Uggan without Julian Uggan. That's what Famoksaiyan, the first conference, was. And so, a lot of people who went on to become community activists and leaders who went home or who stayed in the diaspora. And so just and then and Magetu has, as we saw earlier, retained his sense of humor. Has retained his sense of humor. It's just as
That's
much
my
fun.
secret. That's my secret power.
Just as much fun 18 years later, Biba.
Hey, you know what I love about this photo? is that it shows you that what we were dressed back in 2006 is back in now in style. Like if I'm driving down or I'm walking around campus, that's exactly how my students are dressed like today. Everyone in those photos, in that photo. Just saying.
Oh
Hey,
wait, so
Miguel,
oh
you
go
know
ahead. Go ahead.
the famous African dude on TikTok? You know, the one who does the pose you're doing? It looks like you created that before he did. So you should sue him. Look, that's the famous pose he does, isn't it?
Oh, that's true. I never made that connection before. Wait, I love this one. Metgut taiguihi ilati hungan ateneste. This is like Hafa na fucking helambi tsatmuit. That's what this one. I love this one. But oh, Dispensa Alfred, go ahead. So, what were you feeling though? What were you feeling?
You know that those 2 days were like a blur in my memory, just because I feel like there was just so much stuff going on. There was so much synergy and excitement, and so it's even hard for me to remember those 2 days. It's just like because like when you're hosting it and you're also presenting at it, and you're also meeting people for the first time. It's like you're busting your butt like it's a fiesta, right? Like you're bringing in the trays of food and you're doing all those things that you would do regularly, like that you would do for family gatherings. And so the days are a blur, but the things that really stand out to me the most from that moment is like the relationship building I did with you and with Sett and with Destiny to Tao Tao at that time. It was just like really great to just be working with all of you. Like Sett said, making photocopies or meeting at IHOP like at 1 o'clock in the morning because we all had work or school or something like that, so we couldn't meet until later on until the very early mornings, or we kept meeting until very early in the mornings. I remember even at one of our meetings, I think it was for this Famoksaiyan too. I think Leona was there, right? Leona Naholoa. We met
Mhm.
Leona at one of like at IHOP too, like down in San Diego somewhere.
Oh,
So
that's
you
right.
know,
Yes.
remember? Yeah, we met somewhere down in San Diego, I think, and Leona rolled out, and I met Leona that way too. So I think so. Just having those moments of like camaraderie and working together to build something and to have it come to fruition, I think was really powerful. Knowing that like there is strength in even when you're doing something that's grassroots style and you don't have a lot of resources, there's still strength that comes from being able to pull the motivation, right, and the inspiration and that genealogy and lineage of work, right, of giving back and working and caring for our community and caring for each other. And so I'm really I feel very fortunate to have had those opportunities to do that. And so the big thing is like also the relationships that were built, and then at times, right, so some of the relationships still stay intact. Some of them you lose contact with folks too, but nonetheless like those relationships that were made then and the ones that each of us have individually with people from back at that time period also mean a lot as well, I think. So
Oh, yeah. Seduce Masi. This was, I think, yeah, when, yeah, this was Famoksaiyan was when you think when I'm when I try to place it, as somebody who writes, who does Chamorro history, who collects Chamorro stories, but as somebody who also tries to collect those stories to help us understand Chamorro activism and the changing of Chamorro consciousness. So for me, it's also just trying to think about when Chamorro consciousness begins to shift. And so this was something when this was important because you always have to think that the conditions on the ground are such that something can change or something can shift at any moment. What happens at a certain moment that it does, that it finally does. And so, Famoksaiyan could have happened 10 years earlier, or something like this could have happened 10 years earlier, right? But it's just always interesting because it did happen when it did happen. And I think part of it too is because of the forces and the sort of the stories that each of us represented, right? Those of us who kind of came together to make it happen. So those in the diaspora kind of who, as you've shared, had questions, but then those even for me coming from, because for me at that time I was in a grad program in the States and I was really missing home and I was desperate for any way, because this was, nowadays the military buildup to Guam has been something that has been discussed for more than 18 years. But in 2006, it had only been around for about a year. It had first been announced in 2005. And so it was something that was new, and it was something that was kind of mysterious and almost nefarious. This idea, thousands of Marines are going to come to Guam. What does this mean for the island, right? And so for me too, this was like I was away from home, but I was wanting ways to connect to home. And I was grateful because in people in people like you, Alfred, Sett, Destiny, Migetu, and others, it was like, I was, if, we all were like, let's do something, and let's not just do something for ourselves, but let's do something where others who also want something more, where they can benefit from it too. Let's create a space. And at least for me personally, this has just been something that, I don't know, the rest of my life has been about creating spaces, creating spaces for people. Uh, but just thinking about sort of the impact on it, the impact sort of this, because when you think about how many people in Famoksaiyan have gone on to become part of other activist groups, like so many people and who were part of Famoksaiyan then went on to become part of We Are Guahan, and then went on to become part of Independent Guahan. Interestingly enough, it was like and it's an interesting transition. Interesting transition. But man, this takes me back just looking at how I used to have a disposable camera. And looking at some of these faces, some people that I haven't seen in a while, some that I have. I see, of course, Sabina Perez, Senator Perez, fairly regularly on island. But this is Shauna Castro. I haven't seen Shauna in quite a while. And then Lena, this is Alina Titing after her husband pretty regularly. But I haven't seen her in a while. But yeah, now one thing that I one thing that I wanted to ask everyone though is, what are your thoughts though about, because one thing that I appreciated about Famoksaiyan though is that even though we those who organized it, there wasn't necessarily like a particular political agenda except for just creating a space for Chamorros, right? Like a space to kind of support Chamorros who wanted to present their research or who wanted to connect with others, who wanted to network, just like um a space because for those who feel like there's no spaces for them, right? And so what are your thoughts then, 18 years later, on the need for, if not something called Famoksaiyan, another space like that? Especially now that the Chamorro diaspora is even larger than it was 18 years ago, that there are far more Chamorros outside of the Marianas than there were in 2006. What are your thoughts on the need for another gathering, another conference like this in which Chamorros can come together? Uh, I wanted to hear hear what you think about that. Should it be in the diaspora? Should it be in the Marianas? What do you think?
Miguel, Katsuhu, busted in Melania. You need to be the governor already. Okay?
What? No,
Stop
no.
asking all these philosophical questions, Chalu, and just become the governor. All right,
Oh,
Frank the
no
Crank
way.
Camacho's running, dude. Frank the Crank. My answer is that I think we should do both. But the real beauty of our people is that whether we call it Famoksaiyan or whether we call it, whatever, if we give it a formal name, the movement is in a beautiful place. And if I can just salute you, salute your beautiful children, all the stuff you create back home that so many people get to watch in the diaspora. Y'all know I be tagging you and your mama and your grandmama every week. Y'all better give me credit. I be tagging you every week because to me that is Famoksaiyan. And I don't care if we call ourselves that or we call ourselves Neson Chamorro or Patehi Latekjan or Protect Guam Water or Guma Imahi or Guma Gela. Those are all, of course, we need names. But the truth is, like, Chamorros are standing so strong right now. There's 50 million Gumas. And if I hear one more person say, Ihaligi, I'm just going to do cartwheels because there's probably hundreds of kids learning Chamorro chants and dances. It's beautiful, Here in Tacoma, we have Gumay Mahi and I don't know, I think they have 100 people in it. It's beautiful. Joel Larmer. So I'm all down for either formally reuniting under that label or joining other groups as like you said, whether it's through Fanachu or Independent Guahan. I do think people are in a beautiful positions to affect real change. Like, of course, your positions that you're all in. I think about, like we said, Senator Perez back home. It would be cool to do something now in the context of the real roles we have and see how we could expand that mission to paddle together, nurture together. And just for the record, Mr. Batsagu, that is in the original Famoksaiyan paragraph, tip of the spear. So I know you're trying to give a shout out to Tupac over there. Okay, I read the flyer. Okay. Hey, Miguel, I also copied and pasted part of that in my master's thesis, but I did cite you, and I pretended that it was already a book already. And I used to cite Minagahe as a book, basically. So that was the best.
That's what it's there for. Sige.
Yeah.
Hey, Sidus Masi. No, I like that. Hungan. I like that.
And I'd like to offer Washington State, please. We have, I think one of the biggest Chamorro diaspora communities. So whatever year you want, on 2025, 2026, but let us be in that rotation of California and Guam or California and the Marianas. It would be great to host you all here.
No, Hungan. That's the thing is that no, Sidus Masi. California has sort of the legacy sort of Chamorro institutions, but Washington's got the energy. Washington's got the energy now. Is that they're growing, it's up and coming, and so I'm hoping that So Sidus Masi, but I like what you're saying. That is that
it should. Can I add before I forget? There's Brittany Lujan who works at the Pacific Islander Community Association, which is a great nonprofit. I already mentioned Guma Mahi. And then I just met Odessa Olgo, who's a Chamorro professor who's tenured in English at Olympic College. And I think she said she's been there about 15, 20 years. There's also a Chamorro professor of mathematics, last name Leon Guerrero, at TCC, Tacoma Community College. So in the last 3 weeks, I've met 2 Chamorro professors. And imagine my whole rest of my life, I only met one other one, which was Joanne Solis, who retired out of OC. So I feel like that's another good reason to maybe think about doing something around education again. So
No, I like that, especially because we don't always have to think the big, like the biggest names or the biggest institutions are the best. It's wherever the roots are the strongest, wherever there's the hands that are willing, right? And so no, Sidus Masi. But I like what you're suggesting there. The energy, there's the energy, and it it doesn't have to have any particular name. You just got to have a space for the energy. Like that's what,
and the president, Dr. Enriquez, right? She think would be very supportive. Tija, Professor Antoinette Charpus McDaniel, Chamorro Pathways, I feel is the missing glue to this
Mhm.
because she has a network of 20 people who have all graduated. Me and Sett reconnected through Pathways, actually. We were both speakers. That would be great people to maybe connect to Famoksaiyan and who could attend and who could present as well.
No, yeah, I'm good. I think it would be a great idea just to have something like a physical space. I mean, that's me personally, like a physical space just to bring people together, for being tomorrow. And for something to give them something to believe in. Like just because but anyways, I want to give Sett and Alfred a chance to kind of share their thoughts and their reflections, especially looking back 18 years later. You saw what you were wearing 18 years ago. You saw how we all dressed 18 years ago. You've lived some life since then. You've seen kind of the movement, how it's changed since then. And so, what do you think then about lessons learned from Famoksaiyan? And so, Alfred, you want to go first or Sett? Listo how?
You want me to go? Okay.
Okay.
No, I'll go. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think like, Magetsu's saying, there's so many possibilities. And I think the biggest thing is that like, because, a lot of things have changed, since 16 years, I think the possibilities are much more broader and there's so many more avenues, and pathways that we could take to kind of to do more organizing and to do more work, coalitional work, because the fact that like, when we were in college, right, and we're talking about the, continental U.S., at the time there were only a few handful of Chamorros that people knew about, right, that were in education or like in some kind of role in academia, right. So it was like, you know, Mike Perez at Cal State Fullerton, right. He was like one person. There was, obviously Vince Diaz, right, was in Michigan with the work that Vince was doing, on Micronesia, and so and of course all the writing he's done, right, on Guam, right, all his scholarships, and so there was like Vince there, and pretty much that was it, right? Like that was it really in the continent for folks who were doing anything on like Chamorro studies that were around, and so but now if you fast forward to it, and we're just talking about the diaspora right now, right? I mean, like there's so many more now, there's so many more, so like, we have like, Tiara Napati at UC Irvine, who really well, and obviously Keith Camacho and Christine Taitano Delau, and the list, goes on and on, right? Like other folks that, are, Chamorros that, are in education and so in academia. And so, my point is, right, is that, there's so many more spaces now that I think for folks in the diaspora that you can go to. There's so many more academic spaces. And because of that, I think there's also, right, a lot more opportunity in terms of like you said, space creation. So like, if we wanted to do, another conference, or we wanted to just bring people together, right? It doesn't even have to be a conference, but just to bring people together. I think there's a lot more resources now available to us than there was when we were just, undergraduate and graduate students, right? Who were like literally begging people to like donate like $10 if they could, right? To, towards, buying meals for folks, right? So, and that's not even counting all the cultural spaces that have emerged, since. Like, we now have a whole cultural festival that didn't exist right before. and then there's also like the House of Chamorros down in Balboa Park in San Diego that didn't exist before, so and then obviously KCF was already around, but now KCF has grown and there's Uno hit right in San Diego, and then they have a group out in Texas. And so, I'm just thinking like there's been so much flourishing, I think, of like, Chamorro based stuff that, the sky's the limit of really what we can imagine or what we want to do in terms of like organizing and bringing folks together. So, and then, like I said, right, Auntie Antoinette in the Midwest, as Magetu brought up, so like there's just so many folks, even outside of the Pacific Northwest and the West Coast, even thinking about like the Midwest that, are really opportunities, to bring folks together throughout the entire continent. So.
No, Sidus Masi. No, Sidus Masi. That is true. There's definitely more possibilities, yeah, more spaces, definitely more Chamorros in positions that could definitely provide support. You are right that when we did Famoksaiyan, it was just a few people that donated. I know Set your family donated food. And then yeah, a few people made some donations to help cover costs. And then just like reservation costs. And then everyone basically just paid their own way to get there.
One of my favorite memories was meeting Sett's family and Alfred, to meet your mom and your family. Wasn't that so beautiful? Like to see, and your families were like, I just remember so they were proud and they were like, I just remember different aunties saying, "Oh, we're not used to like talking bad about the military, but I'm really proud to see you young people come together." You remember that? I forgot whose auntie that was, but I just remember being so emotional. It was so beautiful. So I just want to thank all your parents, and your families again.
Oh no, Hungan, it was. I mean, it was a very powerful space. Especially actually said if you want to share and then actually we should go around and just share some of our favorite memories from it. That I think that would be a good way to close. But Seth, go ahead and share lessons learned, especially now looking back today.
I mean, I'm just going to echo what everyone's saying. I think that the energy is always there. I think when you're able to come together and connect with other Chamorros, whether that's in a academic environment or in a cultural space, I think just like I said, just getting to know one another. I agree with Alfred. A lot of the conference itself is very blurred for me. But what I walk away with is just that the emotional feeling. Just the like it's hard to articulate. I think you just had to experience that. And the fact that there are so many resources, so many spaces, so many people, kind of just initiating on their own, just whether that's through language or that's through, academics, based on geography. I just think it's such a beautiful thing where I think back then we didn't have a lot of those resources, in whether that's in school or even amongst our family. I remember sometimes it was hard for those kinds of discourses to happen. It was, just I think it was just trying to find the right, like I said, the right space. And so, I know that whatever it is that people would like to do, or however this will move forward. The idea I think of bringing everybody together is beautiful in itself, and I think just to be able to share all that everyone's doing, and so I think to have that all highlighted, whether that's here in the Marianas or even in the diaspora, I think is just beautiful overall. So, but I think either way, I think throughout the years, people have done that, whether that's grassroots style or that's in a more formal setting, and I think it just shows that we as a whole, people are wanting to come together, and to find more belonging, and so I think it's amazing, and I think to be able to share resources and spaces like that, will always be needed, will always be needed.
Sidus Masi, Sidus Masi. Let's.
And can I just say real quick that obviously of the four of us, Sett, you aged the best, girl. Look at you, girl. Go bonita. You haven't even aged. Look at Miguel. Miguel looks beautiful like me. We look like somebody's uncle. But not you,
Hungan,
girl. You look like somebody's prima. And Alfred, it's not fair
Hungan.
because you're so basical. You look young no matter what. It's not fair, dude. Yeah, see, when you smile like that, you look 21,
Yeah,
bro.
no, Hungan.
Tell your wife, hey, tell May when you get in there, say, Miguel said I still look 21, girl. You better hold me down, girl, because I could be in the club. You better
It's
tell her.
true. Whatever the this is the problem with being Tamale Nai is that the Chamorro part that means you age well, I didn't get that. I got the white part that means you don't age well.
No, you still handsome, Miguel. Hello. Everybody knows you're like Tanahashi coach, but from Anigua. And you got that deep boy. Hey, you got that. This is Doctor Miguel Lujan de Boca. You got that sexy voice, Miguel. Everybody knows it.
Sidus Mosse, Sidus Mosse. Oh, okay, wait. Hungan, okay, let's go through some of our favorite moments. Let's go through some of our favorite moments. Hungan. All right, who wants to share? I mean, okay, I'll go first because we did talk about some of the elders, and so one of my favorite moments was the fact that so you may remember that I made a reservation for us to use the Sons and Daughters of Guam Club for this conference, and then they tried to cancel it because they called me a communist. And then
I'm
like
dying.
like a few months before the conference, they called me a
That's like calling
communist
brother
and they
Franz Fanon. That's Franz Fanon over there, Alfred.
and they called me a communist. They said they were canceling my reservation. I said, "You already took my money though. What the hell is this?" And so I had to go down there and I had to like argue with them. And eventually they gave in. And so I invited them to come down. I told the leadership at the Guam Club, you know, you always complain that the young people don't want to come to the Guam Club. Well, there's going to be a bunch of young people. Megay man hoben guini, nai. There's going to be a bunch of young people. You should come and talk to them. These young people are proud to be Chamorro. They want to be Chamorro. They're excited to be Chamorro. You should see them. But very few of elders came from the Guam Club. Most of the elders that came were connected to the group Setlu instead, which is the one that organizes the annual festival. And so one of my favorite moments is, and I have the picture of it, but it wasn't in the ones that I scanned, is John Beneventi, who's still around. Juan Beneventi, he's a veteran, a war survivor, a Vietnam vet, war survivor. He's in his 80s, late 80s now. He was the one where at the closing, where we're all doing the tomorrow goodbyes, where we don't want it to end, and so we keep coming up with reasons to stay together and keep talking and keep doing things. He's the one where he's like, we have to sing Kotarata. And then most everyone there was like, what's that song? We don't know that song. But then he started singing it, and I was like, oh, I know that song. And so to have like Juan Benavente like kind of singing by himself with just a few other people chiming in every once in a while in front of everyone at the closing, that was like really meaningful because for me though, because but yeah, that was something that was special for me because at least some of the elders from Tsetlu came by, including my auntie Janice, who's still involved in Guam clubs, involved in Guam clubs, and she's one of those where she's that we may not agree on every issue politically, but we both have strong Chamorro pride, and we want sort of to definitely push for things for the Chamorro people. Okay, so who else wants to share something? A favorite memory.
Well, I also share that I also really was moved by the closing. Um, I know at the end of the second day, and I think just like you shared, I think a lot of the elders kind of came in, and I think you just felt like everybody's emotions, and I remember actually meeting Annabelle Cruz, Julia Nuggen's mom, and I remember she came up to me, and I actually shared my poem/song, and at the end, and I remember her coming up and just sharing, thank you for putting into words exactly how we feel. And and I think for me that was very profound. And I think also in between the first and second day, just really hanging out with people. I think it wasn't. I think it was not until after everything that we were able to kind of come together, and I think just kind of talk, about what this all meant for us. And I think it was really neat to see that as much as it was based on, like presentations and conferences, it was really, as we were talking about, just people wanting to come together, and why they were pulled, to pay for their trip, out of state, or from up north, down to San Diego. And I think, like I said, just getting to know their journey, I think was amazing. But I think the blend of different people coming together, in different generations, like I said, it was very, very emotional, and for me personally, very emotional. And so that's what I take away from it all.
Mhm. Jesus Masi. Primo.
Thanks, Maget. No, I would say for me, it was just the relationships that I was able to make there, and then I would say the ones and how and those relationships that have persisted, and I'm guilty too of it, like where all the people that I've met there, I've not been able to keep in touch with, but for the folks that I have that I did meet there, there are still the people that I go to, make efforts to try to see every time I come back home to visit, so like for the ones that live there, like right, Maget, when I come back I try to always try to catch at least one coffee or meal with you. Sett, we spent a lot of time together last time I was there, so and then I know Lola wasn't at the first one, but Lola, someone that I go and check in as well with, Lola, who I met at the second Famoksaiyan conference. And so, for me, it's like those relationships. And Leona, of course, is another person. And then was it Kelly? Was Kelly Marsh at this one too? Was Kelly,
Kelly Marsh
right? Kelly,
Titano was at the first one.
yeah,
Yeah.
Kelly, yeah, yeah. So I
Yes.
remember meeting Kelly Marsh there too. So like so there's folks that like over the years that I try to keep up with in person or at least over social media, and those are the relationship building that I think are so crucial to a work that is being done. And granted, like I said, right, we're all not perfect. We all make mistakes along the road, and I think the biggest thing though is just my encouragement is for other people and people who are younger than us, the next generation, is to keep doing this kind of work. Keep finding ways to bring people together. Bringing yourself together. For whatever various purposes are to bring greater visibility, bring greater knowledge, to fight for something. So whatever it is, like I think that's just really the power in it all, is that we're all part of this genealogy. And so while in some ways Famoksaiyan was this really important moment because there was like some first about it. There were things that were first, but at the same time, Famoksaiyan is I see it as part of this larger genealogy of like the ways that Chamorro have always put their power and their courage and their strength together, right, into making action. And so I just want young people to keep doing that kind of work. So hopefully we could see another gathering soon.
Viva. Jesus Masi. Miguel, any final? You want to share a favorite memory?
Spencer Telu, Guahu Hosbook.
Oh, está hospital.
My friend.
Oh, hey. How's
Hey,
it going?
half a day. Half a day.
I told her, I said, sorry, these are the really famous Chamorro philosophers from the motherland.
That's cool.
And like, hey, we're all Igorots. I said, don't worry, girl, we're all Igorots anyway. Can I tell you one of my favorite memories? The only Chamorros would appreciate this. First, my favorite memory from Famoksaiyan, actually, I remember walking around with you, Sett, and my cousin Chaz. And I think we were walking outside of, I don't know if it was Miguel. Was it your property, your place that everybody was kicking it at? I just remember
Yeah.
out just remember there was 1,000 shoes by the door. Like, man,
Yeah.
some Chamorros, man. We got 1,000 shoes.
Yeah.
All the white people's nervous. And then Miguel, I know you're a 7-day Jehovah's Witness or whatever, Miguel. So I was like, man, I don't want to get you in trouble. But me and Seth, we had to walk around like JD Crutch. Negna, 21 to preso. You know what I'm talking about, Seth? We had to have our session, like Bob Marley and the Wailers. And I remember Miguel looking at us like, man, they're those kind of Chamorros. And I just remember thinking, I love how beautiful our people are. Like, we can be very different. And it's just like having cousins, and you accept your cousin if they're quote unquote kind of ghetto like me, or if they're very sophisticated, they went to private school. I won't call out what schools we're talking about, but I'm talking about Academy and FD. That's what I'm talking about, okay? And maybe they went to private school like Seattle U, or they went to public school like UW. I just remember all of us feeling a sense of relief to be together. That was so beautiful. Famoksaiyan led to me going to New York 3 times. I got to go with Alfred and his wife. That was probably one of my favorite memories. But I'll say this and you'll laugh, okay? Imagine I'm in we had to go meet with the consulate officers, and I'm with Lola, and I'm with Craig Santos Perez, okay? Who in 100 years, when we're all Matai, people are going to be like, oh, wow, those are the famous Chamorros. Like that. Lola, Leon Cabrero, Craig Santos Perez, Julian again, Miguel Dubacqua, right? And check this out. I was trying to build rapport, okay? Because we're with the Filipinos. And you guys should have seen. I told them, Leku, did you know, Mr. Consulate, that 40% of Guam is Filipinos? And then as soon as I said that, their whole attitude changed. Like, oh, okay, let me listen to you now. Okay. Then I looked at Lola like, told you, girl. Told you. We got to Miguel. Then I went too far. You can ask Lola. This is a true story. I told her, I said, and, sir, babe, you appreciate this. And I said, and many Chamorros are part Filipino. Do you know that Lola looked at me like she wanted to punch my face 5 times? And Craig Sanchez Perez, looking all light-skinned like Steph Curry, he looked at me like, what, Miguel? I said, listen here, both you Filipinos better shut your mouth over there, okay? I know you're both part Filipino if I Ancestry.com you right now. If I 23andMe you and I check your baptism certificate. This is our people. That's what I told him. And sure enough, the consulate brought out food, Miguel, brought out tea, brought out coffee. And Alfred said, I looked at Craig and I looked at Lola and I said, Muller, I told you guys, we have to keep it real, because my overall point, just like with the Chukis and with the Wafalawash, like Rima, right? Rima was such a pivotal part and Fanai of Famoksaiyan, and just making those, like, we're all really for real related. That's what's beautiful about Oceana, Pacifica. So that's my favorite kind of memories of our Famoksaiyan, movement coming together.
Oh, and Maget, right, too. Like, since I was talking about the diaspora, I can't, and then Maget too brought it up, which is important, to acknowledge. Can't forget about like Auntie Fran at Piam, right? Auntie Fran at Piam, and then Auntie Lola, Uncle Joe at GCN, and of course, right, as you said, Craig Santos Perez, and then Olivia and Quintanillas as well, right? They're professors too. Olivia at Miracosta, who I know you know as well. So, like, want to make sure I try to, remember all of our folks. So I apologize if I missed anyone else, but yeah.
And you know what? I love
so
Auntie Fran. Auntie Fran is like all Chamorro families. We all have an auntie like Auntie Fran. It's like, whether I see you a lot or not, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. Shout out to Auntie Fran at Payam. She'll boss you right now, Sett. Right now, if you call it right now, she'll tell you what to do right now.
Oh, I a day. Man, we gotta get back together again. We gotta bring back more Famoksaiyan OG members for a longer discussion just because this was it was good reminiscing, good reconnecting. I mean, I think that one thing that we've touched on, one of the values of a space like Famoksaiyan is that as Chamorros, there is this tendency to kind of divide into groups and cliques and so on. But Famoksaiyan was just a space where it was like, just come, just come. You want to connect to others? Just come. You don't have to be like, you don't have to go to a fancy school. You don't have to be getting a PhD. You don't have to go to this. You don't have to go to that. You don't have to be this type of Chamorro. You don't have to be that type of Chamorro. You just have to come. That's it. Can you get here? And that was the only requirement is, can you get there? Because if you can get there, you can be a part of it. And that spirit is important. It's very, very important. And so that's why I think something like that it's important to bring back. It's important to keep around. And so, the list primo that you provided there, of people that have means, that have resources, that are at institutions, or even the growing Chamorro community up in the Pacific Northwest. These are all opportunities for who wants to provide a space, who wants to guaifi ikulu, who wants to blow the kulu and just say, you know what? There's so many of us now. But we're still spread out, and there's even a new generation that's coming up that has lots of questions. And if we don't help them, then they're just going to get their questions from chat. They're going to get their answers from Chat GPT or TikTok. And so let's create a space where we can help them and we can guide them and we can connect them. And so that's my goal.
Can,
That's
can
my
I
hope.
can I open my house to you three and your families? If you wanna visit Seattle in the summer or in the fall, I'm dead serious. Okay, I have a 3-bedroom house where you can have the whole upstairs floor to yourself. But tomorrow's that's what we used to do, right? They'd be like, "Oh, come visit me," and tomorrow's back in the day, they're really gonna show up. You know, so
Okay.
you remember, like back in the day, it's like, "Are this our relative?" Be like, "Not really," and we're staying here. Yeah, we are. So I want to do that. Okay, my home is open to you guys for our Famoksaiyan reunion or whatever planning. And the best time to come here, honestly, is the end of the summer or the beginning of the fall. It's beautiful here in the Northwest. So I invite you all. Okay.
Sidus Masi. Sidus Masi Megetto. Sidus Masi Alfred. Sidus Masi Sett. Sidus Masi no hamso todos ni umega por umeekungo que y finakpo na episode Fanachu. Adios. Este
Ugata
Kilman.
Chandler, Masi, esta.